So in 324, we're going to be talking about positioning integers in the coordinate plane. So we're going to be talking about how to graph and also finding distance between two ordered pairs. So to start us off, we are going to do some vocab. So our first vocab word that we are going to talk about is a coordinate plane. So a coordinate plane is a plane formed by the intersection of a horizontal number line called the x-axis and a vertical number line we call the y-axis. The next word we are going to talk about is an ordered pair. So an ordered pair represents a point with the first number giving the horizontal position relative to the x-axis and the second number giving a vertical position relative to the y. So how we would show this is we write x, comma, y, and they're always inside of parentheses. And then our last one is origin. So the origin is a point at the coordinate plane where the x-axis and the y-axis intersect. So this is what we call 0, 0. So real quick, if you want, you can flip to the very back page and just use something that you have room, or you can just follow along. So if I'm looking at a coordinate plane, okay, this is what it looks like. And as you can see, it's split into 4 sections. We call each of these sections quadrants. Okay, quad means 4. So we have our y-axis. This is the axis that goes up and down. And we have our x-axis. This is the axis that goes side to side. And how we label this is quadrant 1, 2, 3, 4. So anything that falls into quadrant 1, anything that falls up here would be in quadrant 1. Anything that would fall in over here would be quadrant 2, 3, and 4. And so sometimes on a test they might give you an ordered pair without a coordinate plane, and they might say, what quadrant does this point fall in? And you'll have to come up with, where does that fall on this coordinate plane? Okay? And so like we just discussed, our ordered pairs are written in x, y form. So any of our points that would fall in this first quadrant, those are going to be our positive ordered pairs. So because this is our positive x-axis and our positive y-axis. Okay, so that gives us our positive ordered pairs. In quadrant 2, our x-axis, this is the negative piece of it. So our coordinates would be negative, and then this is the positive piece of our y-axis, so positive. And I'll show you some actual examples of what this really means here in a moment. So right here, okay, because we always start with our x-axis. Our x-axis right here, this is representing our negative side of our x-axis. And this down here is representing the negative side of our y-axis. So these are our negative ordered pairs will fall in there. In quadrant 4, our x-axis, this is our positive piece. But for our y-axis, this is the negative. Okay, and right here, this is what we call the origin. This is where they intersect. This is our 0, 0. So as you can see, our 0, 0 point, if I go this way, I'm hitting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and so on. If I go the other way, I'm hitting -1, -2, -3, -4. Same thing if we're going up and down. If I go up, I'm hitting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. Going down, I'm hitting -1, -2, -3, -4, and so on. Okay, so that's where I kind of came up with these negatives and positives. So for example, they might give you a point, where does -2, 3, what quadrant is that in? And hopefully you know, oh, that would fall in quadrant 2. We have a negative and a positive. Here's a negative and a positive. And they might say, what quadrant does, and we said that was 2, 0.13 fall in? Well, that's a positive, so that's right here. So that's quadrant 1. And so on. Okay, so that's kind of how what they might present to you on a test, and especially during math tests. So let's go back to our notes. So back to our note page under our vocab. Okay, we're looking at Elliot is adding a two-dimensional element to his game. He now wants his frogs to hop both left and right, as well as jump up and down. All frogs start at the origin 0, 0. He will write the two numbers to give the jump lanes. Left and right jumps will be the first number, which is your x coordinate, and up and down will be your second number, which will be your y coordinate. So for example, 4, -3 means we always start at 0, 0, and then we go right 4 and down 3. So let's look at the first problem. Frog A hopped 3 units to the right and 4 units up. So let's go ahead and plot that. We always start at 0, 0. We're going to go 3 units to the right and then 4 units up, and we're going to make our dot here. Nope, let me get my... Okay, so this would be frog A. So how I would write that as a coordinate or an ordered pair, I went over 3 on my x-axis and then I went up 4 on my y. So that would be 3, 4. Now frog B, we always start at 0, and he hopped 5 units to the left and then 4 units up. So his point is right here. So for frog B, I'd write his point as -5 because I went to -5 on the x-axis, right here, and then I went up 4. So it says how far apart are they? So I can just count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. They are 8 units apart. So go ahead and pause the video, use what we just did to help you with B, and go ahead and try C. Okay, so for letter B, it says frog C hopped 2 units to the right and 6 units down. So I'm going to go ahead and plot that. I'm going to go over to the right 2 and down 6. Here's frog C. And then frog D hopped 2 units to the right and 7 units up. So 2 to the right, 7 up. So here's my frog D. All right, now it wants us to write the coordinates. So how I would write the coordinates for frog C is I went over 2 on my x-axis and I went down 6. So that's a -6. And for frog D, I went over 2 on my x and I went up 7. So if I wanted to know how far apart those points are, I'd count the space in between, and that is 13 units apart. And for C, it says Flibbits lands at -7, -4. So I'm going to go ahead and plot him. I'm going to go over 7, or no, sorry, over -7 and down 4. So here's Flibbits. And then Kermie lands at 0, -4. So I'm going to put that dot right there. So how far apart are these 2 points? And hopefully you got 7 units. And we're actually going to skip all the way to the last page of notes. So it has this absolute value picture at the top. If you want to do this last page, you can practice graphing, but we're going to go ahead and go over this. So we've been finding distance of points, but how we were doing it earlier was we were just counting the boxes between each point. Well, there is a method to use where you do not actually have to graph the points in order to find the distance. So we're going to go over that. So at the bottom of the page, I'm going to have you write your steps. There's 3 steps. So leave room to write all 3 steps at the bottom. So step number 1. Okay, we're going to look at the coordinates that are different numbers. So essentially, we're going to look at X or Y. So first thing we're going to do is look at, are our X coordinates two different numbers or are Y coordinates two different numbers? And let's come over here and we're going to look at letter A to use as an example so we understand what am I saying down here in the step. So what I'm looking at is, are my X coordinates two different numbers or are my Y coordinates two different numbers? And if I look at that, I see, okay, my X coordinates, I have a 4 and a -5. Those are two different numbers, right? My Y coordinates are both 9. So my X coordinates are the ones I want to look at. All right, step 2 is going to find the absolute value of both coordinates. And feel free to pause if you need to take time to write. So I'm going to find the absolute value of both coordinates. So I'm going to find the absolute value of 4. And I'm going to find the absolute value of -5. The absolute value of 4 is 4, because remember, anything that comes out of the absolute value bars is positive. And the absolute value of -5 is 5. And lastly, we're going to do step 3. So step 3 is look at the original coordinate and their sign. So look at the original coordinate and their sign. If they are the same, we are going to subtract the absolute values. And if they are different, we are going to add the absolute values. And that'll make more sense hopefully when we finish this example here. So step 3 says look at the original coordinate and their sign. So we're going to go back up here and look at this 4 and -5. And we're going to see, do they have the same sign? So when I say do they have the same sign, I mean, are both numbers positive or are both numbers negative? Different signs means either they have a positive or a negative sign. So they have one of each. So if I come up here and look at, I have a +4 and a -5. That tells me right there I have two different signs. So I'm going to add the absolute values. So my last step would be to add the absolute values. So 4 plus 5, and that tells me these are 9 units apart. So let's go ahead and do B as well. So it says let's follow our steps. Look at the coordinates that are different numbers. So we're going to look at the coordinates that are different numbers. So we're going to look at, okay, here's my X coordinates, here's my Y's. Which number or which coordinates are different? Well, my X coordinates, they're both 7. Those aren't different. My Y coordinates, I have a -1 and I have a -4. Those are different numbers. So we're going to use those. Step 2 says find the absolute value of both coordinates. So I'm going to find the absolute value of -1. I'm going to find the absolute value of -4. Again, anything that comes out of absolute value bars is positive. So this is 1 and this is 4. All right, last step says look at the original coordinate and their sign. I have a -1 and a -4. So do they have the same sign? Now we're not looking at number, we're looking at sign. So are they the same sign or are they different? And hopefully you can realize they are the same. They are both negative. So the same sign says to subtract the absolute values. So I'm going to do 4 minus 1, which gives me these are 3 units apart. Go ahead, pause the video, and try C and D on your own. All right, let's try these. Step 1 is I'm going to look at which coordinates are different. And if I look at these, I can see my Y coordinates are different. Okay, my X coordinates are the same. So I'm going to look at my Y's. Second step says find the absolute value. So I'm going to find the absolute value of 9, find the absolute value of negative 7. The absolute value of 9 is 9. The absolute value of negative 7 is 7. Third step says to look at the sign. So I have a positive 9 and a negative 7. So I'm working with two different signs. One's positive and one's negative. So different signs mean add the absolute values. So 9 plus 7, which tells me these are 16 units apart. And for D, I'm going to look at which ones are different. And in this one, my x coordinates are different. Okay, my y coordinates are the same. So second step says find the absolute value of both. So I'm going to find the absolute value of 4, which is 4. Find the absolute value of negative 10, which is 10. I look at my signs for my third step. So I have a positive 4 and a negative 10. Those are different signs, so I add my absolute values, which gives me 14 units apart. All right, and that is 3, 2, 4.